In a forgotten town, silence clung to decaying homes. A black woman, a milk delivery driver, struggled to survive. One rainy morning she discovered an injured, frightened boy in a desolate house, awakening echoes of a childhood she'd desperately escaped. While others ignored him, she risked everything to rescue him from the shadows. Years later, the boy returns to repay the woman who saved his life. Before we delve into this story, tell us where you're watching from. We love hearing your thoughts. Amara Johnson gripped the milk crate as her old truck rattled down the dirt road. At 28, her skin was the color of rich earth, dark curls tucked beneath a worn cap. Her oversized thrift store jacket offered little warmth against the autumn chill. Delivering milk on the town's outskirts wasn't her dream, but it paid the bills. The road wound deeper into the woods where the trees thickened, obscuring the sky. At the path's end stood a house out of place. Its paint peeled, windows were shuttered, and the porch sagged precariously. Neighbors called it the forgotten house, whispering tales at the gas station and diner. They said that after the husband's death, the woman inside had isolated herself and her son. No visitors, no light, only silence. Amara stopped her truck, the gravel crunching softly. The house seemed to watch her, still and weary. She approached the uneven path, her breath misting in the cold air, and placed the milk crate on the porch. She knocked gently, not expecting an answer. Moments later, the door cracked open, revealing a child's face. The boy, no older than 6, had tangled brown hair, gaunt cheeks, and wore an ill-fitting sweater with holes at the elbows. His large, gray eyes darted nervously like a frightened stray. His thin, trembling hands reached out, snatched the crate, and vanished inside. The door slammed shut. Amara felt a pang in her chest. She had seen many lonely children during her deliveries, kids with bruised arms or vacant eyes, but something about this boy resonated deeply. Perhaps it was the tremor in his hands or the fearful way his eyes scanned for danger. It reminded her too much of herself. Amara knew the silence and cold spaces left by adults preoccupied with their own struggles. She had grown up in a trailer on the edge of town with a mother who drank too much and a father who came and went like smoke. Meals were uncertain, kindness rare, and fear a constant undercurrent. By 10, she had learned to conceal bruises and lie to social workers. Looking at that boy, Amara felt the years recede. She saw herself in him. Not just the fear, but the desperate, stubborn flicker of hope he probably didn't know he still possessed. She had long ago promised herself that if she ever had the chance, she would be the person she had needed. Maybe that chance stood before her. Amara lingered, her heart heavy. She had delivered to lonely homes before, but this felt different, colder. She returned to her truck, the boy's scared, hollow eyes following her down the empty road. 3 days later, under a gray sky, Amara found herself on that narrow dirt road again. The scent of rain filled the air. She told herself it was just another delivery, but her stomach tightened as she neared the house. Something nagged at her. She parked and grabbed the milk crate. The wind tugged at her jacket as she approached the porch. This time she hesitated before knocking. Through the cracked window, she saw the drawn curtains and felt the oppressive silence. She knocked gently. After a long pause, the door creaked open. The same boy stood there, but he looked worse. His lip was split, a bruise blooming beneath one eye. His small hands trembled as he tried to lift the crate. Amara knelt, placing the crate at his feet. Her voice was soft, careful. "Are you all right, sweetheart?" she asked. The boy flinched, his eyes darting to the dark hallway. He shook his head almost imperceptibly. Before she could speak, a sharp voice cut through the house. "What the hell is taking so long?" It was a woman's voice, coarse and angry. The boy shrank back. "Move it, you little pest." Amara opened her mouth to protest, but the boy had already grabbed the crate and slammed the door. The lock clicked. Amara stood there, her heart sinking. Every instinct screamed that something was wrong, terribly wrong. But what could she do? She was just the milk lady. No one would listen to her accusations without proof. Jaw tight, she returned to her truck. She sat there, staring back at the house. The woods whispered with the wind, the trees like uneasy witnesses. On her way out, she passed an elderly woman raking leaves. The woman glanced at her, then turned away. Amara slowed the truck. "Excuse me, ma'am, do you know the folks living up the road?" The woman looked over her shoulder, her mouth a tight line. "Ain't none of our business," she said sharply, then bent her head lower, raking faster. Amara swallowed the bitter taste in her throat. The message was clear. Nobody wanted to get involved. The rain began to fall. The image of the boy's bruised face stayed with her. She knew she couldn't ignore it. The next time Amara drove down that lonely road, dusk was falling. The trees stood like silent sentinels. She hadn't intended to return so late, but something inside her had insisted. She parked a distance from the house, the air damp and heavy. The house looked more desolate than ever. Clutching the milk crate, Amara moved toward the porch. A sharp sound cracked through the silence, followed by a muffled cry and the thud of something hitting wood. She froze. Through a tear in the curtain, she saw the boy being dragged across the living room floor. The woman, her face twisted in rage, hauled him toward the back of the house. He whimpered. Without thinking, Amara dropped the crate. Milk bottles shattered. She raced to the door, finding it unlocked. It slammed open. Inside, the smell was a sour mix of cigarette smoke, mildew, and something rotten. The woman turned, startled. Her eyes narrowed. Her hair hung in greasy ropes. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" she snarled. Amara's voice was low and steady, though her hands shook. "Let him go." The woman laughed. "Mind your damn business. He's mine to deal with." Amara stepped forward. "You're not going to touch him again. I saw enough. I heard enough. I'm calling the police." The woman spat on the floor. "Take him. See if I care. Useless little mouth to feed. Dead weight just like his damn daddy." She shoved the boy. Amara steadied him and glared at the woman. Without another word, she scooped the boy into her arms. He weighed almost nothing. She carried him out the door across the wet yard. Behind them, the woman's voice chased them into the night. "Go on, take him. You'll regret it. He ain't worth saving." Amara didn't look back. She moved as fast as she could. She reached her truck and settled the boy onto the passenger seat. He clutched the seatbelt. Inside, the silence was thick. Amara started the engine with trembling fingers. She pulled away from that cursed house, from the woman whose hatred had poisoned the very walls. The boy said nothing, just stared out the window. "You're safe now, baby," Amara whispered. For the first time that night, the boy shifted closer to her, resting his head lightly against her arm. It wasn't trust, not yet, but it was something. As they drove away, the rain began to fall, washing the dirt and blood from the world behind them. The apartment was small, but to Amara, it had always been a haven. Tonight, as she unlocked the door with the boy cradled against her side, it felt like a lifeline for both of them. She flicked on the light. The warm glow painted the worn furniture in soft gold. The boy did not move. His eyes stayed wide, staring at the ceiling. His fists were clenched tight. Amara crouched before him. "You're safe now, sweetheart," she said. "No one's going to hurt you here." The boy flinched. He shifted his gaze to her, hesitant. His breathing remained shallow. Amara saw the war raging inside him. A part of him still expected pain, while another part wanted desperately to believe her. Slowly, Amara moved to the kitchenette and filled a mug with warm water. She returned with a washcloth and gently touched it to the bruise on his cheek. The boy recoiled, but when she made no sudden move, he allowed the cloth to touch his skin. His face twisted. Kindness was a language he no longer understood. As she dabbed at the grime, Amara spoke softly. "My name's Amara. I live here by myself. It's not much, but it's warm and there's food in the kitchen if you're hungry." She hesitated. "What's your name, baby?" In a voice so small it barely carried, he whispered, "Eli." Amara smiled. "That's a beautiful name, Eli. It suits you." The boy blinked at her, then spoke, his voice broken and halting. "Are you going to send me back?" Amara set the cloth down and reached for his hands. "No, Eli," she said firmly. "You're not going back there ever." Eli stared at her. Years of being hurt had taught him that promises were dangerous. Yet, as Amara wrapped him in a blanket, something in him shifted. It wasn't trust, not yet, but it was the first crack in the walls he had built around himself. Amara sat on the edge of the coffee table, close enough to keep him company but not so close as to scare him. She just sat there, humming a low tune. Slowly, Eli's breathing steadied. His small body sagged deeper into the couch. His eyelids closed. Even in sleep, his brow furrowed with worry, but for the first time in a long time, he slept in a place where no fists would find him in the dark. Amara leaned back, watching over him. She did not know what tomorrow would bring. She only knew that tonight Eli was safe. Outside, the rain fell harder, but inside the tiny apartment, there was only the soft rhythm of a small boy finally breathing without fear. After the long night passed, Amara sat by the window watching the morning bleed into the sky. She knew what she had to do. She had to call the authorities. She could not protect him properly by herself. The officers arrived within the hour. They spoke to her kindly but with a distance she hated. They asked Eli questions he was too exhausted and frightened to answer. When the social worker came, Amara knew there would be no changing the outcome. Miss Given explained to Eli that he would go to a place where people would take care of him. Eli said nothing. He simply held Amara's hand tighter. When they stood at the door, Amara knelt before him. "You're going to be okay, baby," she said, forcing a smile. "You're stronger than anything they threw at you. You'll make it. I believe in you." Eli looked up at her with pleading eyes. He only leaned forward and hugged her with every ounce of strength in his small body. When Miss Given gently touched his shoulder, Eli pulled away reluctantly. He clutched the plastic bag holding his few possessions. Amara wanted to scream, but she only stood there and watched him walk down the steps. Each step felt like a blade dragging across her chest. In the doorway, Amara gripped the frame. Her mind raced with 1,000 fears. When the car pulled away, Amara stayed rooted in place, staring long after it was gone. The house felt cavernous, hollow. She wiped her face roughly. "You did the right thing," she told herself. "You gave him a chance. You gave him a future." But deep down, a voice whispered another truth. She had lost him and she had no idea if she would ever see him again. Years slipped by. Amara returned to her deliveries, her simple life, but a part of her never moved forward. She carried Eli with her everywhere. One bright spring afternoon, Amara stood by her front porch. She was in her late 40s now. There was a calmness about her, a quiet strength. A knock came at the door. She answered it, expecting nothing. Instead, a young man stood before her. Tall, neatly dressed, with a messenger bag slung over his shoulder. His hair was trimmed close, his posture sure and steady, but when he lifted his head, Amara saw those same gray eyes. "Eli," she whispered. The young man smiled. "Hi, Amara," he said. "I've been looking for you." She stepped back and let him inside. Eli sat on the familiar couch. "I never forgot you," he said. "You were the first person who ever fought for me. You didn't have to, but you did. You gave me a reason to believe that life could be more than pain." Amara reached for his hand. "I don't have much family," Eli continued, "but if you're willing, I would like you to be my sister." The tears she had kept locked away for years broke free. "I would be honored," she said. They sat together on the worn couch. Amara poured 2 cups of tea. Eli cradled the cup between his palms. "I wanted to find you sooner," Eli said, "but I made myself a promise. I swore I wouldn't come back until I had something to show you. Something you could be proud of." Amara shook her head. "Baby, you never had to earn that." "I know," Eli said, "but I needed to." He leaned back and began to tell her everything. How he had bounced between homes. How he had learned early to keep his head down. How school had become his escape. "I wasn't the smartest kid," Eli said, "but I was the one who stayed late, who asked questions, who worked when everyone else slept. I figured if I could be better, faster, sharper, maybe nobody could ever hurt me like that again." He continued. "I got scholarships. I worked nights. I went to law school because I wanted to fight for kids like me. The ones everyone else forgot." He looked at her, his eyes shining. "And now I'm about to be sworn in as a judge." Amara stared at him. "A judge, Eli?" She set her tea down. "I want you to be there," Eli said. "At the ceremony. I want you sitting right in the front row where you belong." Amara pressed a hand to her chest. "Of course, baby. Of course I'll be there." Eli smiled. "Good," he said. "Because I have a few things I need to say and I want you to hear every word." 3 days later, Amara stood at the foot of the courthouse steps. She wore her best dress. Her shoes pinched a little, but she didn't care. She clutched her purse tightly and made her way inside. The courtroom was a sea of dark suits. Reporters buzzed quietly in the back. The seats filled quickly. Amara sat in the front row. Her heart pounded. When Eli stepped up to the podium, the room stilled. He adjusted the microphone and looked out over the crowd. His gaze found Amara immediately. "I wasn't supposed to be here," Eli began. Statistically speaking, I should have been another case file. Another lost name in a system too busy to care. I grew up learning how to survive, not how to dream. I knew what it was to be invisible, to be hurt and told it was my fault, to believe that the world had no place for boys like me. Amara felt the familiar sting behind her eyes. But then, Eli said, his voice deepening, someone saw me. He paused. A woman who had no reason to care, no obligation, no blood tie, just a heart big enough to open her door to a broken boy. He turned to Amara. Amara Johnson, you saved me. Not with wealth or power, but with kindness and courage. You gave me the first real home I ever knew, even if only for a night. You gave me hope when hope was dangerous. Amara's hands trembled in her lap. And today, Eli said, his voice resonating through the courtroom, as I take this oath, I vow to carry your example into every decision I make. I vow to see the unseen, to fight for the forgotten, to be a protector for those who have no one to stand for them. The judge beside him nodded solemnly. The oath was administered. When the ceremony ended, Eli stepped down from the platform. He moved through the sea of people and came straight to her. He did not say a word. He simply leaned down and pulled her into his arms. Amara closed her eyes. Her cheek pressed against the fine wool of his jacket. And for the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe that some battles were not fought in vain. Some battles were won. And sometimes the family you chose was the truest family of all.